The art of negotiation leads secrets to dominate any situation. The deadly silence, the secret weapon of elite negotiators. Did you know the man who saved over 200 lives in impossible situations never yelled, never threatened, and never used force? His name was Chris Voss, former FBI lead negotiator, and what he discovered will forever change how you see power. Picture this scene. An armed kidnapper has held hostages for 18 hours. Police are outside, weapons drawn, tension thick in the air. But the one who resolves the situation isn't the elite sniper or the commander shouting orders. It's a calm man sitting in a van, speaking softly into a phone. Chris Voss proved something that challenges everything we think about power. The greatest strength doesn't come from your voice, but from your silence. As performance archaeologists, we've discovered that history's greatest negotiators share a disturbing secret. They don't win by what they say, but by what they can make others reveal. Voss developed a technique called tactical listening, where every pause, every breath from the opponent becomes valuable intelligence. He realized that when someone is under extreme pressure, the words they choose not to say are more revealing than what they do say. Science backs this up. Our brains process 400 words per minute, but we can only speak 125. That means there's an ocean of information swimming in the mind of the person across from you. Negotiation masters learn to fish in that ocean. They know the person controlling the conversation isn't the one talking most, but the one asking the right questions and knowing when to shut up. Think about your life. How many times have you lost an opportunity because you were too busy planning your response instead of actually listening? Voss discovered that the difference between mediocre and legendary negotiators lies in a primitive skill we've unlearned: the ability to be genuinely present in conversation. The most powerful technique he used was called labeling. When he sensed an emotion in the kidnapper, fear, anger, frustration, he simply named it. It sounds like you're feeling betrayed by the system. It wasn't a question, wasn't an accusation. It was just a vocal mirror that made the person feel understood. And understood people drop their guard. But here's the deepest secret. Voss learned that every negotiation is, actually, a discovery. You're not trying to impose your will. You're trying to discover what the other person really wants. And sometimes, they don't even know themselves. The FBI taught him something that Harvard Business School never could. Behind every no is a scared yes, waiting to be uncovered. Every aggressive person is defending something they value. Every stubborn person is protecting something they fear losing. The negotiation masters don't fight the defense, they discover what's being defended. Actionable exercise. For the next 24 hours, in every important conversation, practice the 3-second mirror. After the person finishes speaking, wait 3 seconds before responding. You'll be shocked at what you discover in those silences. If you just realized your conversations could be way more powerful than you imagined, drop "I listen" in the comments. And if you want to discover the next layer of this elite code, hit that notification bell, because what comes next will change how you see every human interaction. Forbidden psychology: how to read minds without magic tricks. In 1962, one man prevented nuclear war using only words. He wasn't a politician, wasn't military, he was a psychologist who decoded something world leaders ignored: the language of fear. His name was Jerome Frank, and his discovery saved the world. During the Cuban Missile Crisis, while Kennedy and Khrushchev played chess with humanity's fate, Frank worked behind the scenes, applying behavioral psychology principles that transformed nuclear letters into human conversations. He understood something revolutionary: every conflict is, at its core, two people trying to be understood. Frank discovered there's a secret language we all speak, but few know how to decode. It's not the words coming out of our mouths, it's breathing patterns, speech velocity, pauses between sentences. Every person under tension develops a unique, emotional signature, and those who learn to read that signature possess a superpower. Modern neuroscience confirms Frank's genius. When we're under pressure, our primitive brain takes control. The amygdala fires, logic shuts down, and we start operating on automatic patterns. It's like every person has an emotional access code, and persuasion masters learn to crack that code. Frank's most effective technique was what he called calibrated emotional mirroring, he didn't mimic the person that would be obvious. Instead, he mirrored breathing rhythm, speech speed, and emotional intensity, but always 1 degree lower. If someone was speaking fast from anxiety, he'd speak at the same pace, but slightly calmer. This created a hypnotic synchronization effect. But here's the most powerful insight. Frank realized every negotiation has 2 levels. The surface level about money, territories, agreements, and the deep level about recognition, security, dignity. Amateurs focus on the surface. Masters operate in the depths. He developed a formula he called the trust equation. Understanding plus validation equals collaboration. First, you demonstrate you understand the person's perspective. Second, you validate their feelings even while disagreeing with their actions. Third, they naturally open up to collaborate. During the Cuba crisis, Frank helped diplomats realize Khrushchev wasn't being aggressive for power, he was being aggressive from fear. Fear of looking weak to his own people. When Kennedy began talking about finding a solution that preserved both nations' dignity, the tone completely shifted. The CIA declassified documents in 2017 revealing Frank's influence on those critical negotiations. His psychological frameworks didn't just prevent war, they created the template for modern diplomatic negotiation that's still used today. Actionable exercise. Identify someone you're in conflict with. Before your next conversation, write down 3 fears they might be feeling: fear of being disrespected, of losing control, of being misunderstood. During the conversation, validate those fears indirectly. I imagine this must be frustrating for you, or understand your position is important. If you're starting to see that all resistance hides a cry for help, comment, I decode, and get ready, because the next secret will reveal how to transform any opposition into a powerful alliance. Lethal empathy, the weapon that conquered empires. Wall Street's most feared man never yelled in a negotiation. Ray Dalio, founder of Bridgewater Associates, the world's largest hedge fund, discovered his greatest competitive advantage wasn't his financial intelligence. It was his ability to make powerful people voluntarily reveal their weaknesses. And he did it with a lethal weapon: radical empathy. Dalio revolutionized the investment world not through complex algorithms or insider information, but by applying a principle he learned studying hostage negotiators. Whoever best understands hidden motivations always wins. In his billion-dollar negotiations, he developed what he called radical transparency, a technique to make opponents drop all defenses. Dalio's discovery was disturbing. Every human being has 3 motivation layers: surface, what they say they want; social, what they think they should want; and primitive, what actually drives them. Amateur negotiators stay on the first layer. Professionals reach the second. But masters like Dalio operate on the third layer, where primal fears and deepest desires live. His most powerful technique was emotional mapping. Before any major negotiation, Dalio and his team conducted a complete psychological analysis of the opponent. Not through espionage, but through public research. What books the person recommended, how they talked about family, what decisions they'd made under pressure in the past. Each piece of information revealed part of the person's emotional code. During a $2 billion negotiation with a sovereign wealth fund, Dalio noticed the representative constantly used the word legacy when talking about his country. Instead of focusing on numbers, Dalio reframed the proposal: this partnership isn't just an investment, it's how your country will be remembered in global financial history. The negotiation that had been stalled for months closed the following week. Neuroscience explains why it works. When someone feels truly understood, the brain releases oxytocin, the trust hormone. It's an automatic, involuntary response. The person simply cannot maintain defenses at the same level. But Dalio discovered something even deeper. Empathy isn't just about understanding the other person, it's about understanding the belief system governing their decisions. Every person operates within an internal logic that makes sense to them, even when it seems irrational to you. The negotiation master doesn't judge that logic, they utilize it. His formula was simple: validation plus reframing equals transformation. First, you validate the person's internal logic. I completely understand why you think that way. considering your experience. Second, you reframe your proposal using that logic's language and values. Third, the person reaches your conclusions naturally. Bridgewater's success rate in major negotiations exceeded 87%. Using these psychological frameworks, Dalio proved that understanding someone's emotional operating system is more valuable than any financial model or market analysis. Actionable exercise: choose someone important in your personal or professional life. Spend a week observing. What words does this person use repeatedly? What values do they mention with most emotion? What past experiences do they cite as examples? Create a motivational profile and test using it in a conversation. If you're realizing that understanding someone deeply is the greatest power that exists, drop "I understand" in the comments. And stay tuned, because the final revelation will show you how to transform all this wisdom into a lasting legacy. The legacy of immortals: how negotiators become legends. When Steve Jobs was dying, he called his biographer and said something that would forever change our understanding of leadership. "I don't want to be remembered for the products I created. I want to be remembered for how I changed the way people talk to each other." Jobs had discovered his true inheritance wasn't iPhones, it was his negotiation methodology that transformed conflicts into innovation. In his final months, Jobs revealed his most guarded secret. Every revolutionary negotiation he led followed the same pattern. He wasn't selling products, he was selling a vision of the future. And he did it through a technique he called reality distortion, but organizational psychologists now recognize as collaborative narrative construction. Jobs understood something that separates immortal negotiators from the forgotten. People don't buy products, solutions, or services, they buy better versions of themselves. Every successful negotiation was actually a story about transformation. When he introduced the first iPhone, he didn't talk about technology, he talked about how it would change people's relationship with the world. Jobs' genius lay in the psychological architecture of his presentations. He always started by identifying a universal frustration: everyone hates carrying 3 different devices. Then, he elevated that frustration to an emotional level: this isn't living, it's surviving. Finally, he presented a solution that didn't just solve the problem, but redefined the identity of whoever adopted it. Welcome to the future. But Jobs' deepest insight was discovering that every epic negotiation has 3 ingredients: urgency, exclusivity, and eternity. Urgency: why act now and not later? Exclusivity: why this opportunity is unique. Eternity: how this decision impacts the person's legacy. During the negotiation that brought Disney back to life through Pixar, Jobs used exactly this formula. To Bob Iger, Disney's CEO, he didn't talk about numbers or contracts. He talked about how Walt Disney would be remembered: as the man who created magic, or as the man who lost it. This partnership isn't about animated movies, Jobs said. It's about whether Disney dies with Walt or is reborn with the next generation. Neuroscience explains why it works. When we connect a present decision to future identity, we activate brain regions associated with self-actualization, one of the most powerful motivational forces in humans. The person stops choosing between options and starts choosing between versions of themselves. Jobs created a framework he called the transformation triangle: where you are current reality, where you want to be future vision, how to get their collaborative proposal. Every negotiation followed this path, making the opponent co-create the solution. The legacy Jobs left wasn't just a trillion-dollar company, it was a methodology that transforms salespeople into visionaries, conflicts into collaborations, and negotiations into movements. People who learned from him don't just close deals, they change entire industries. Internal Apple documents, released after his death, revealed Jobs' negotiation preparation was more psychological than financial. He studied the personal motivations, career pressures, and legacy concerns of every key decision maker he'd face. Actionable exercise: identify an important negotiation you need to make. Instead of listing benefits of what you're proposing, write a 3-act story. 1. How the person's life is today: frustrations. 2. How it could be in the future: transformation. 3. What's the first step to get there? Your proposal. Tell that story. Don't present a proposal. If you understand that your greatest negotiation is with your own evolution, comment, "My legacy." And if this journey through the secrets of immortals awakens something in you, share it with someone who needs to discover their own hidden power. The world needs more people who know how to transform conflicts into growth.